Quick question: what is the preceding topic we starting off with?
We're going live. Go on, Rich.
You said, what's the topic that you're starting off with, Terry?
Just the dialogue introduction. We're live. I'll speak.
What's good, people? What's good, people? Can everyone hear me? We are live. You understand? We're finally here. We've got some technical problems in the place, but nonetheless, we're joined here by 19 Keys, Professor Konsu from Manhood Academy, my brother, Mr. Riggs. We're just going to be chopping it up about coronavirus, the situation so far, and legacy. I know Terry's got some viewpoints and questions that he wants to ask the brother. It's all off the cuff, so we're going to get straight into it. Riggsy, talk to the people.
Greetings, everyone. This is Terry Riggs, Mr. Riggs, UK tour guide to the rest of the world. And you know me, new beginnings, etc., etc. But it's all about the Black Eyes TV. Anyway, it's all about our legacy. Where is our legacy? What is about our legacy? What we're going to do after this coronavirus, especially when we talk about the financial gains, we talk about our youth and how are we going to educate our youth, or are we going to even have a legacy to give into our youth? So, you know, we have in perspective, we have Professor Konsu, and then we have the big mighty 19 Keys in the house. And we're going to be talking about loads of things about financials. We're going to be talking about Manhood Academy, and we're going to be talking about rites of passage, and we're going to be just a little touch on the coronavirus, but we don't really want to go into the details of the coronavirus. We want to go into the details of after this has gone. What are we doing next? So in that perspective, I'm always promoting black stores. I'm asking for everyone, if you even have the opportunity while this coronavirus is happening, is to just purchase something from a black store, whether it's just a pencil or a pen, or if it's something big. You know, you're ready to run to these supermarkets and buy toilet roll, but you know what? Why don't you just buy something from one of your brothers, whether it's a scarf, bandana, whatever, but just buy one thing, even if you spend $1. It's something. But you know, at the end of the day, as we talk about this corona, and it just makes me reflect on one of my master teachers that has passed away. As I said, rest in power to Dr. Layla Africa, who was a powerful doctor, who's our foundation. Because without him leaving 6 books, a lot of these scholars out here wouldn't be where they are today. So we have to pay respect where it's due. So, you know, I'm just saying, give us a 1 minute silence for Layla Africa once more time again, and then we can start to begin our dialogue. So let's start from now. Just give it 1 minute and then we can start. Yes. Gratitude and respect for a man that has given us our legacy. And now let's maneuver into this situation. As we know about the coronavirus, I'm going to introduce Professor Konsu. Introduce yourself, my brother.
Bless, greetings. And may the master teacher, Dr. Layla Africa, ascend to the highest realm and join the pantheons of master teachers of our community.
Yes. 19 Keys, would there anything you would like to say?
You know, may we continue the efforts and work of our ancestors rather. And that's the best way that we honor them. You understand me? By whatever they laid in front of us, we utilize that to go forward, have upward mobility. And for those who look up to, admired, enjoyed, appreciated, and loved the work of anyone who passes over, you know, continue to walk as if they're right there next with you. You understand me? Because a lot of times we give praise to people who pass, but we don't do the work that shows that we really loved and appreciated and followed what they put forward. So definitely, I appreciate that moment of silence for the good brother.
Yep.
Rich, you got something to say, Rich?
Boy, as always, big shout out to the ancestors, always on your shoulder, always walking with you. I know the elders' legacy will live on for many, many years to come, because it's not no dead knowledge, it's living knowledge they left for us. So it's always about remembering that and trying to carry on whatever aspect of the legacy that most appeals to you. Take it, run with it, make it yours, and continue it on. That's all we can say. And again, it was an honor to know him, meet him, flex, do some bits, you understand, and have that time. So for that, big up always.
Yes. So now we can go into the first protocol. And, you know, as Professor Konsu, he said he had a little bit of something to talk to the people about, you know, about this coronavirus and his opinions and what he thinks about it. Konsu, fire away, my brother.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the talk of the town or the talk of the globe. And really, I mean, I term it the immune system virus, you know, because if we use that terminology, it might just clue people up as to what they need to do. But it's just interesting observing. I'm observing it more so from a spiritual angle and a metaphysical angle, as opposed to the high drama of what's going on in the media. And of course, people are losing their lives and tragedies happening. But yeah, it's about, as Dr. Phil Valentine trained us all, I'm sure, just have your they live glasses on throughout this time.
So, Rich, what's your opinions on this coronavirus? Brother Rich. Brother Rich is probably busy as usual. But 19, what's your opinion on it?
Blessings, yes. COVID-19. I would like to go by the scientific name that they gave to it. You know, when we look at the word corona, of course, it means crown. You know, because of the crown-shaped virus, and it's supposed to be a novel virus. And it was discovered in 2019, which is why they call it COVID-19, and that's important to be able to understand. You know, that number 19 is a number that reveals and uncovers things. You know, anytime you have that one next to that 9, there's something to be uncovered there. As I study and understand, you know, synchronicity and high level observation, I see many things unfold under this particular COVID-19. And there are nothing that we should take for granted at this particular point in time, because we already seeing measures and bills that are coming out of it as a result of it. And I know out of here, it's the new America that will definitely be post COVID-19. You understand me? Before you can see anything at a 2020 vision, you have to get past 19. You understand me? And so a lot of people can't see clearly because they get right there in front of their face and they don't have that sort of vision. Now, we can go to new enactment of technology. You know, a lot of people have made connections between magnetobiology, you know, and different frequencies and radiations that connect to this respiratory virus. You understand me? We know our people have been talking about, you know, immunology, ways, like my brother said, to build your immune system. That's not something that the TV and the news media will ever promote, because they are in the promotion of death and fear. So they're not in a promotion of health and confidence. You know, that's not what they want people to rely on. They want you to be reliant on a government, which creates a more reliant system when you can promote fear. We are in the 19-year stretch from 2001, from the 9/11. You understand me? And that number 19 always shows up when there's something to be uncovered, because they said it was 19 hijackers that did that. And here we are 19 years later with their COVID-19 project that changes the, not just America, because you have to remember during 9/11 that was a global event as well, something that happened on a global scale toward the entire world. You know what I mean? Observe that anytime the entire world observes anything, it changes the world, right? Because consciousness is what produces the world that we live in. And so on this global scale right now, you have everybody in fear mode. And now this campaign is even bigger than the last one. Out here in America, we're not only going through these new biological terrors, but we're also going through a recession at the same time. And so out here, everybody's looking at whether there's going to be suspension of habeas corpus. You know, Article 1, Section 9 deals with habeas corpus, saying that basically you have somebody snatches up your body, you have the ability to have your body seen in front of a court and the ability to be bailed out, you know what I mean, and just do. And so the government is working on more powers to implement mandatory vaccines, to implement basically illegally being able to lock you up, you know, and power over your body is a big thing that people have to understand. You understand me? And what's going to happen is, as you have people locked up in these places, essentially your home becomes your jail right now, right? And this is a very traumatic experience for a lot of people, not having any resource or options to be able to move. A total disruption in the rhythmic pattern of people across the planet Earth changes reality after that pattern is disrupted. So, of course, when I look at this entire thing, I can't look at it from the view and the lens of, oh, this is a virus, this is a flu. I have to look at this as a global change. And I need everybody else to start recognizing what is happening from this global change. Even if you don't believe in the virus and you believe that you're completely immune and, you know, we black guys and we ain't worried about none of that. You have to understand that there are economic implications that go along with it. You know what I mean? There are security implications that go along with it. And so when we think about that, there's egregors and global consciousness changing that goes along with it. And if we don't get ahead of our own people, while their minds are open, looking for safety and security, they will look for the very people that created the fear in the first place to make them feel secure. And that looks like going along with whatever will allow them to come back outside to normality, not realizing that the world will never be normal again. So right now, COVID-19 is a covert global a global agenda. It's a covert global agenda that's being played out right in front of the people's eyes. So I would love to observe it from that lens, and, you know, tell everybody to, you know, for one, stay focused on the solutions and things that you can control. Don't overindulge in fear, because if you can't do anything about it, do not increase your knowledge on things that you don't have the ability to change. Increase your knowledge on things you have the ability to change. That makes you smart. It doesn't make one smart to know things that they can't do anything about. That makes you knowledgeable. So I don't want everybody to be so knowledgeable of the problem, but not smart on the solutions and execution and things that they can take to empower themselves right now.
Yes, brother Rich, are you back now? Rich? It keeps on coming and popping out. Yeah, as we go back into this dialogue, and we just wanted to do forms of introduction into what this colonial thing is. Rich, are you ready to speak? I don't think he's able to speak. I'm trying to get him in, but Yeah, as we having this dialogue of this coronavirus, but today it's more on this understanding of rites of passage and how we be disciplined in that situation. Konsu, as we had the conversation before, how can we be disciplined in the understanding of the rites of passage for our youth, the rites of passage for man in general? Because this is something that will keep us disciplined in for us to able to come and see where we're at this precise moment.
Right. Well, I coined the term urban rites of passage because traditionally, as we know, in indigenous cultures throughout the world, rites of passage was enacted in the village, the forest, the woods, etc. But we're in a modern time, so we have to adapt what we do to the time we're in. But in the context of rites of passage, I mean, I've worked with young people for 15 years, and I've specialized in rites of passage for many years also. And from my perception, it's actually the solution to the challenge we have with our young people. And why do I say that? We have to keep in mind in times of ancient, in all cultures, whether it's Asian culture, African culture, ancient European culture, or Oriental culture, rites of passage was a prerequisite to manhood and womanhood. It was a necessity to be initiated into the village or into the city. Why? In those days, it was used as a form of survival. You had to have the elders step down and make wise choice, and the young uns come up and protect the women and the children of the village or the city, gather food, build up the city or village, etc., etc. So it was a necessity for survival. We no longer live in a jungle or a forest as a community, but we do live in an urban concrete jungle. And the skills of survive and thrive still exist. So we need to teach our young people what it is to be a man. Why? There's a saying that boys are born and men are made. There is also, it's an argument that women have an intuition, some form of intuition towards womanhood. So that is an inbuilt instinct. It's an arguable debate. But to do with boys, it is known throughout all cultures, boys need to be taught and it needs to be modeled from wise elder men how to be a man. So, for example, at Manhood Academy, we shape up our young people from as young as 8 into what it is to be a positive masculinity. And it's a process. In modern days, it's more so than being strong and brave and courageous, even though those rules apply. But we live in a time where masculine and feminine polarities our boys have to be balanced. So it's not about being a hyper masculine male, and it's not about being the weak or effeminate male either. It's a balance. So we also explore a curriculum of things such as emotional intelligence. So boys are attuned to their emotions, because as we know, through the music, through the media, and through the stereotypes, especially Black boys are trained to be hyper masculine, meaning disrespectful to women, meaning wearing a mask, a fake mask of being tough, strong, aggressive, when we know, and I know from the young people I work with, the real road youths, inside they're really vulnerable. And they wear a mask to protect themselves, a steel mask, and it's not working. We also have to address the challenges that we have generally as men in all cultures, and that is the dysfunction of the family household, and the absent father, which is chronic in the Black community and leaves deep scars in our boys. So we also have a curriculum where we heal that. Each boy has to write a letter to their father, whether their father's in their life and it's a wholesome relationship, whether they've never ever met their father or whether their father's deceased. So they go through an emotional exploration of healing the internal scars, if they do have them, of fatherhood. Why? Because the father is the first archetype of masculinity in a boy. Even if that father's not around, the boy will still have the genetics of the father. So it is his journey, if dad isn't around, to put together the pieces of the puzzle of who he is as a man. So all of these things throw into the mix in the context of rites and passage. And the final thing I will say on the theme of rites of passage is, what is rites of passage? Rites of passage, in essence, through all ancient cultures, is a process of bonding, men bonding, or women bonding, in terms of women's rites of passage, bonding, showing bravery, courage, overcoming tests and challenges, and proving yourself to the team, to the crew, to the group, right? I put the same analogy to what are our young people doing on the streets in our world cities. Let's use the word gangs, quote unquote. What qualities do you need to join a gang, quote unquote? Well, the first quality you'll need is courage. You'll need bravery. You'll need to prove yourself to the crew. Okay? You need to prove your worth. My analogy, based on exploring this for many years, is that our young people are intuitively creating their own forms of rites of passage. It's just a negative rites of passage. They still need to be initiated, right, into your average gang. You still need to prove yourself. But these are the things that were conducted by the wise elder men of the village. And what's happened is there's been a disconnect and a distrust of the wise elders. So our young ones are taken into their own hands, intuitively, I would say, to create their own form of rites of passage and their own rites of passage into manhood. That can also encompass jail, where you will get your stripes, right? So as the wise elders in our community, we have to rein it in and bring it home. We have to bring it home. We have to bring our boys back to the traditional methods of initiation so that they will, grow up to become the wise elders, and not the chronic problems that we're having in our community, who are essentially, predominantly, a lot of the time, afraid of our young people. So we've got a lot of problems, but there are solutions. And, we're all proactive in that.
Okay. Rich, are you there, Rich, now?
Yeah, I think I'm coming true.
Yeah, because I just wanted you to give us an overview between and able to look at what the coronavirus was about, because I think you missed that.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of the questions. Come back to me. I can offer when I hear more. I've just been listening to
a short overview of the coronavirus and the aspects of discipline.
Well, I mean, first of all, just to back up what the brothers were saying, the importance of rites of passage is needed, because again, before you can pass down a legacy properly, to who you're passing it to has to be tested. They have to be put through certain trials in order for them to be worthy of running with the legacy in a proper and right way. And this is another reason why it's so important to reinitiate the process of rites of passage within the Black community, because there is so much, knowledge to be passed down to the younger generations. This process has to be refined and bring into play. And again, it's, as Brother Konsu was talking about, it is directly related to the foundation of it all, which is the Black family. And again, because that's in such tatters, we need these processes to help reinforce what has been broken. You understand? Because it is a form of self-repair as well, and self-analyzing the problem that we face, and obviously getting to a place where our young people then are in the right mind state to move on and deal with themselves, in the right and proper way. And in relation to the coronavirus and discipline, I thought I heard you say, obviously, once you understand that you're living for a real reason, that in itself denotes discipline. So you start to look at your life differently, you start to move differently, you're motivated differently. So again, it's hand in hand process where it works one for the other. The moment you have a purpose, you get me, you always go on different. And I always say to people when talking about legacy, um, if I gave somebody £20 million, or if any of us were given £20 million, it would really matter then who our sons and daughters are and what the hell they're doing, because we'd understand then that there's something to leave. But again, we have to start to think of our mind state, our cultural knowledge and history as that £20 million, as just as precious. So, I hope that answers the questions and starts us off. Big up to George Macon in the place. But. We might get you on in a bit, George.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
19, in forms of understanding the financial game and understanding that legacy, because once we've got to that stage of being disciplined and looking at the coronavirus right now and the way people are spending, for me, it just looks like it's a second Christmas. So a lot of people out there are going to max out their cards. They're going to max out their money in their bank accounts. They're going to max out and then depend on the financial of the government, which is their tax. But then the government are going to put some form of money into the system, which we know that it's kind of just printing up money, which is already fake. It's not really real money. So in understanding of that financial thing, what is your preferences of what's going on the financial side of things?
You made some very good points there. Right now, people are decimating their budget. They're doing what they call panic buying, and that's more so emotional buying. And in this case, it is buying based upon fear, security, and uncertainty. And so the average family doesn't have $1,000, and what they're doing is they're spending their budget for rent for the month, so they don't really know how they could even pay rent because they're hoarding supplies for the next 3 months because nobody's telling them when this thing is going to end, so you can't properly plan. And so that leaves people at a disadvantage to not know the certainty of how they take care of their families. There's a lot of men right now that's trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? Because I have these children, I have my wife. How am I actually going to pay my bills? So yes, it does put you dependent on the nipple of the government, and that's exactly where they want the people to be, so they can try to swoop in like the almighty heroes. I looked at Donald Trump's rating, and it's above the board right now. People that agree with Trump in the way he's handling things at this particular moment. It's dangerous anytime that you give the government that sort of power, to become your measure of relief. When at the same time, we empowered ourselves with the economic opportunities that do exist, and we empower ourselves, always say, become money conscious. Every level of consciousness comes with a new language. When you see that there was liquidity injections, which basically says that the government prints money to bail out banks, you understand me, and other big entities like the corporations, well, that lets you know that creates inflation when there's too much of one thing, right? Which in this case will be the dollar. So that means that there's a connection between the dollar and the bond. So that if a person had knowledge of the stock market, when they watch the news instead of panicking, they know where to buy and place their options. But we don't know that because we weren't taught these things. We weren't taught how to leverage insurance in our countries to put them in tax shelters so that they can become assets rather than liabilities for us that's sitting in banks. And so it's not until we change this whole rhythm of how we even go about doing things, because if we have money and the real estate tanks, then that means that we have the opportunity to buy houses on pennies of the dollar. You understand me? But that requires preparation instead of being reactive. So at this particular stage in time, of course, I have some things going on, but beyond that, the average person should be really sitting down and figuring out how they can empower themselves financially with the education piece of understanding it. Like getting the money don't mean nothing. If you give two people that have, you give a poor man whose habits are poor $100,000, and then you give a man who has a plan with the money $100,000. One of them is still poor, the other one is rich. You understand me? Because what he's going to do with the money that counts. So you can give our people all the money in the world, it's going to put them back in the same position unless you have a mindset shift and you have a plan. We don't really have a problem with getting money. We are a very powerful economic force when it comes to obtaining money and cash flow. We know transactions and cash flow, right? But we don't really know investments and portfolio building. You understand me? Assets. And this is why I told that every black family, you understand me, and even just every black person should own some sort of gold. You understand me? Whether it's ounces, whether it's pounds, kilos, whatever you're doing, you should own gold because it represents a tangible asset that you can actually levy when you want to go get you some credit, right? You want to go get you a loan in the bank and you have a plan to be able to flip that. So it changes the mindset. And when we talk about manhood, I love to break down manhood in the terms of management, right? Because I don't think that at man age until you learn how to manage yourself. And I mean that business is the activity of life, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that man is mind, right? So when you're young and you before you're born, you have somebody that manages you for yourself. They even manage your health. They manage your finances if you have any. They manage your attendance, your discipline. They keep you on point. And every time you learn how to manage one thing, you become a man at that thing, right? So there can be somebody that's a man at finances, but they a boy emotionally, right? It's not until you learn how to manage your emotions, okay, now I'm a man at this. And I like that system of auditing, and this goes for women and men, is saying that what am I a man at? What can I manage myself? In business, management is getting to set obligations and goals when you're able to administer yourself to get to set obligation and goals. So if you set a goal for yourself at the top of the year to say, look, I want to save $10,000, and you actually have the earning ability to make that money, now it says that, okay, can you manage it though, to save it, to invest it, right? And so the average person doesn't have that. So that goes into your manhood, because like my brother said, that, you know, boys have to be taught to become men because it's all management of your mind. To be, for a person to be fearful, the management of that fear creates courage, right? Because it's not to say that men don't experience fear, but to act in the face of fear makes a man courageous. You understand me? It's not saying that we don't want to go out and kick it at the club and do all of these things of escapism, but no, I have to manage my discipline because I have the goal. So instead of just allowing my experiential self to say, YOLO, I'm going to just live this out, we say that no, I'm going to allow my critical self to take over. And each time you allow your critical self to win that decision-making process and you manage that, you become more and more of a man until you get to the point where your habits are only that of a man. You don't do anything like a boy anymore. You understand me? So it's important that we get to that point to where men and women know how to manage themselves. Because if you can't manage yourself, you can't manage your business, you can't manage your finances, and that goes all towards emotion. When we talk about managing our health, people emotionally eat, right? So right now there's people in the house that are doing nothing but overeating, right? So now when we talk about coronavirus and even that connection, people with chronic illnesses, you understand me, are more vulnerable. America is 45% of Americans are obese. You understand me? That's a very bad number. We eat inflammatory foods consistently all day. If the average person tells themselves right now, they said, you know what? During this time while I'm in quarantine, I'm going to take the list of things that I've always wanted to get done and I didn't have the time. I'm going to manage that time correctly. And I'm going to write that book. I'm going to write that business plan. I'm going to do all those things. Here's the reality of that. You just found out how bad your management and your habits are because you told yourself that thing, but you wasn't able to do it. You're not productive. So when we look at what is human capital, you understand me? Human capital is the value of people's resources, skills, experience, knowledge, and you can levy that in the marketplace. So we go to school to get an education because it's supposed to increase our human capital in the marketplace, in the real world, to provide opportunities for us so that we can actually have some economic growth. But in reality, when we look at outside, they're telling that only essential personnel can be outside. Essential jobs, essential businesses are operating in full effect based upon the government. So I always like, what are your essential skills, right? What are the skill sets that you can use in this market right now? And if you find yourself solely reliant on a system, and if that system fails and you fail, then you already attached to failure. Because the American system and the global system is an up and down economy anyway. So you're always just waiting on the next down. So I would say we have to get to that system of management, and we have to change our habits and our discipline, because I can tell you every single step that you need to get done, but that don't mean you would do it until you change your mindset, which change your habits, which shifts your paradigm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, when I actually look at that and I look at the financial game and understanding that when you're panic buying and you're panicking all over the place, you're even affecting your immune systems, and you're vulnerable. And you know what? A lot of people would say that they're healthy and they're happy, but then when that virus comes in, how do you know you're 100% healthy in that perspective? But when I talk about the financial thing, because we've got to look at a lot of things that are going on, from the extent of like China not able to supply in the goods and all the goods that we rely on. In that, if we were relying on our own products, on our own services, like the old ways, where our grandmothers would make our clothes, get our medicines, do all within house, and we didn't rely to the outside world, like as you could see, like the Black Wall Street and many places like that, because there was many of them, and we were self-sufficient. We didn't need to rely on any other system. We were able to provide it for ourselves. But when we did that exchange to giving things to like places like the supermarket, the big electronic companies, the corporations, and allowing them to control in our lives, then the situation arises that we start to give things like our money and everything else, that we start to become that slave in that situation. You know, when you go into work, you earn your money, that money now goes straight back into their pockets. But what are you actually doing to providing what you need within your household? Because if you understand a full economical system and a legacy, you understand what needs to be provided within that home. Like you get the father, he'll probably do the gardening. Like you get the mother, who will do the shopping and cooking the food. Like you get the boys, who would probably sweep the house. Where you get the girls doing the washing. That's an economical system. So when we're able to doing that within our household, then it's what do we do with the community? And then that community turns into the nation. So these are kind of follow-ups in that if we were doing things self-sufficient for ourselves, even what our grandmother told us to wash our hands, and now a lot of people are just realizing that they have to wash their hands now, it doesn't make sense. So when you start to panic and rely on others, when that person is being removed, mayhem starts to begin. So like Konsu, in forms of understanding the rites of passage, right? And understanding like the system of teaching or learning from the environment, learning from that community, to the extent of mastering that community and that environment, then to go into teaching that community and environment, and then being enlightened in the stages of like each one. For me, it's like a 20-year stage. So that first stage, like we go into college or university, from when you're born and when you finish university, you're around 21. So that system based in between that first beginning of age, when they come out from their mother's womb, to when they're 21, that structure, how are we going to imply that to be disciplined into able to understand that even when they get older, they're able to maintaining that legacy that's going to be given to them?
Well, one of the slogans in my book, Sacred Man, is think like an ancient. All right. In the context of rites of passage, we have to understand, and me, I mean, I have love of self and my community, but I am fascinated by humanity. So take examples. In ancient Europe, the rule was that each boy would have 7 men bring him through the process to manhood. Okay, that would be, remember, well, this was old archetypes, you know, working in the fields, etc. But they would have uncle, father, brother, etc. On average, 7 men. All right. We have to remember, in the great civilization of Timbuktu, you were only initiated, you only graduated at the age of 40. Before then, you were not ready. You were not deemed a man. Okay, it took you 40 years to go through the gateways and the cycles into full manhood. So each culture has a system. We still have traditional systems nowadays. You have it in cultures like the Jewish bar mitzvah, for example. Unfortunately, in our community, rites of passage is balling, right? Going to the club, getting your first girlfriend, losing your virginity. So we know this is low culture. So when I say think like an ancient, it's really about embracing high culture. We are in an era of high technology and low culture. All right. And we need to flip the script. If you watch, for example, National Geographic, for example, and the way it's deemed by the narrator, you may see in an Amazon forest in an African village, they may view the people as primitive, quote unquote, right? The narrative, for example, let's take an example of a narrative, and you might hear from David Attenborough or something. He might say these primitive type people. He may not use that language. They are dancing in trance around a fire, you know, not much clothes on, looking, you know. So it's what I'm saying is the language is that these people are primitive, but what we know is those people are leaving the planet in their trance, right? They're leaving here. They're not here. They're going to Sirius and come back. All right. That's high tech. All right. Modern technology is the machine and it's deemed as high tech. But in terms of culture, we are low tech, is my point. So we have to flip the script. And I would say we need to think like the ancients in terms of how things were done and model that, because those are success models that built pyramids globally, built structures that they cannot figure out how they made them, from Stonehenge to Giza. So really, me and my fascination is studying the ancients and just seeing how we can apply that to the modern world.
So yeah, 19. In looking,
I feel that totally, and you know, again, we just gotta understand the culture supports all that we need. If we're looking at, as the brother just said, the most successful times of black culture, whether you want to analyze the financials, the hygiene, the medicinal purposes, it's all at a high level. So again, the examples there for us on whatever aspect we want to take into this 2020. It's all there for you. There's something to always reinforce how you should be going. That's why black people avoid a lot of things when they are on their cultural grind, because it naturally strengthens your back in a lot of situations, whether it be how you deal with your brother in business, how you deal with your family structure, your kids, your extended family, how you conduct yourself cleansely wise, you clean, how you should be groomed. All of these things come under the culture if we really take the time to examine it. So, you know, that's all I wanted to slide in there. But again, what I wanted to ask 19 Keys is, being in America, and obviously a lot of black families are broken over there and divided and split. For you, you know, how important do you feel the extended family is and mentors are for the black community?
before you ask that question, I was just going to go into. I wanted to before you go into the American thing. Is understanding what do you put in place in forms of what you teach and what you give out to the general public in the financial understanding, because a lot of people don't understand the financial game of able to taking care of the family or the community. What do you put into that place of structure?
Family business. You know, my business is a family business. You have to start at home with everything that you do. A lot of people are afraid of family business because of the family dysfunction that has been set up in our communities. So, without that high emotional IQ or living the family CEO that has the idea and business management skill set, then you miss out on the opportunity for your family to put themselves in great financial gain. And so I would really love for everybody to focus more so on the family structure. You know what I mean? And that's why I say one thing that I teach is about all families getting an LLC and also learning the insurance game as well, which changes things for a lot of people. Now, when it comes even to the stock market, we just started a class called Market Keys. One of them is a 2-week intensive course. So when I talked about money earlier, changing the concept of how people see money, more so getting into a flow of it. And you know, one of my mentors always talks about how money is a currency. You understand me? And either you control the flow of money or you get in the flow of money. But it's always flowing and it's always moving. I don't make money. The U.S. Treasury Department makes money. I just create value. And when I create value, the reason people get money is so that they can exchange money for things of value. And when your family has value, when we look at this whole thing right now, there's about to be $1 trillion bailout for corporations and entrepreneurs and family. And the average family is getting, you know, personal money, and then they're also getting money for the businesses. Now, if every business had an LLC and you all worked as a family unit, then that might have been an extra check for you all, depending on how the structure is set up. But when you understand the way corporate power is set up, all of the rights that we say we don't have black people in equality, we can utilize that in a corporate structure, because when you set it up in the eyes of the law, they see that as having more rights than a black person, because in the 14th Amendment, the point of it was to give black people more rights, so-called. But what it did is it gave corporations more rights. So what we're teaching right now is the market keys to, for one, understanding the flow of money and being a part of that flow of money, then taking that structure of information and then teaching that to your family. And we're also rolling out later on this month the insurance piece so that people don't have to put their money in the banks. They can put it into tax shelters. They can put it into insurances to where they can actually have percentages on their own money. You understand me? And then learning how to utilize that accounts to play into the stock market. And there's so many just different ways that we teach our people, but it's more so about just giving them the smarts. Like we've been taught about through everybody that tells us what to do financially, save money, do this, but nobody really gave us the education to be like, okay, what are the steps? And once you give people the steps, then you make them guilty of taking it or not taking it. Like when it's there, your family is choosing poverty, not because of ignorance, right? Like meaning that you didn't have that opportunity, but it's a choice that you make because you're aware now. You're aware that the answer exists. And nobody really has an excuse right now because everybody thought that multiple streams of income was a luxury. You understand me? Like, oh, they just out there making money. No, multiple streams of income was a necessity the entire time. And so now when one stream of income is disrupted, you have nothing to rely on, right? And so you can't be a family standing on one leg because when you become crippled, you can't move anymore. And so we have to have multiple legs, multiple tentacles, and be consistently stretched out. And we're supposed to have family meetings and builds. Nipsey Hussle, when he said when he was 19, he said that's when he became conscious in one interview. And he said he went out to Eritrea. And during when he was out to Eritrea, he observed culture. And one of the beautiful things that he observed about culture is how they shut everything down around family and dinner times. When it's time for dinner, everything else shuts down. The markets, everything, it's time to eat. And he said what this did was it built a community sense that now you get to actually know your family. Right now you get to hear about their day. It's updating you on who these people are around you. And that community infrastructure and building is important to us to be able to facilitate these meetings and being able to manage money and business and ideas and dreams and goals together. Because we are in a state where we have ideas of who our family are. We create images and we freeze frame that image and filter that on how we deal with our siblings. And so therefore, that's why we be like, these people don't even know me. Why are they talking to me? They talking to me like who I used to be, but you haven't updated because you haven't even broke no bread. Doing that family meal time is important. We have holidays to where liability holidays where we get together in America, Christmas, what is it, Thanksgiving, right? And then you're going to sit down and eat with your family. Same thing with people, they pray for their family, but not pray together with their family. You get everybody on a phone call, and then y'all can get on a prayer. What is that prayer? It's setting y'all on the same frequency, right? Because that's what prayer is frequency. So you don't even have to put in the religion of it, but it's an affirming, right? It's that God conscious attuning the minds of your family on that same frequency. And you'll be surprised when y'all are telepathically connected, right? So that connection is important, and we've lost so much of our rituals and that spiritual assessment of each other. So there, of course, we can't get to the logic. We ain't even got the emotion together, right? Before you get to the logic, and business is all logic. So before you get to that, we got to get our emotional intelligence. We have to know each other. That's the reason that we don't like. One of the biggest issues I find with all entrepreneurs across the board, and this was one of like my first viral videos that I went, is because I was talking about the difference between family and friends. And, you know, we always talk about family not supporting this, that, and the third. Well, I always say that now. Imagine if you went and got you a six-figure, job. You don't expect your family to come into that job and buy products from that job because it's making you a lot of money. We don't. Same thing, if you start you an individual business, why should they support it? That's the same thing as you just having a six-figure job. The only difference is you working for yourself. So the goal is family don't have to support your business unless you create a business that supports your family. So when you create inclusion, inclusion builds what? Solidarity. Now y'all coming together for a common cause. And solidarity is what breeds unity. So we cannot have a unified effort. If we look at 1919, we go back to Marcus Garvey. You understand me? With the UNIA, he also, when he went around speaking, he was giving people shares into his company. They can buy it for $5. Now they buying into it. He ain't just saying support me, what I got going on. Marcus Garvey being rich would allow him to have a bigger platform, but he created an opportunity that supported everybody. So he put a market cap on that of $10 million, and in this time with inflation would be 144 million. So when you create a structure of solidarity and you put that in inclusion, that's the formula to success. You understand me? And so once we changed, or that's the formula to unity rather. And so when we change that structure of how we go about creating our inclusive visions for our family, it changes the way your family interact with you. You understand me? I could just get my brother, my sister, and my family to support. Why? That only supports me. So I'm mad that they're not helping me pay my bills. That's selfish of me. No, let's create an entity to where each family can create a business. You have the LLC, y'all can get into a product, a service, a goal. Even if it's not making you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, have something y'all making money together for. Even if it's just a way to where y'all can be putting together money to create events and y'all have a business. But guess what? Y'all come together and y'all do an event. Now that could be possibly a tax write-off. Expenses for the family meetings because it's under a business. So it just changed the way we think about family business. Will change the way that we go about creating our family structures, and will change the way it goes about bridging that wealth gap.
Yeah. So Hansu,
Mr. Riggs.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind is just reinforcing what good brother 19 Keys just said. I mean, it's the simple, whether you're African American or from Caribbean heritage or from African heritage, you know, our elders have these simple parables, which sometimes takes us a whole lifetime to figure out. But there's a simple, you know, the family that prays together stays together. Very simple, but quite deep, right? As you just broke down, there's a whole science in that ritual, you know. But there's one quote just in homage to Dr. Layla Africa that I wanted to drop, and it's in my book, and it stuck with me for a long time, and it took me a long time to kind of overstand it also. And from Dr. Layla Africa's book Nutricide, he says the family is the highest technology. The family is the highest technology. So if you don't mind, I want to read the quote from the book, because just in light of our great ancestor transitioning, I think it's only appropriate. Actually, this is a good time to actually go on Amazon and order it, because everyone's in hibernation. Sacred Man, the book written in homage to Queen Afua's sacred woman. So what does Layla Africa have to say about family and technology? Let me just find this. All right. So, Dr. Layla Africa, from the book Nutricide, he says the first technology of the continent of Africa is the family. In traditional Western terms, technology means a scientific way to achieve a practical purpose. However, technology in a holistic method used to create a family, a community, and a civilization. The family, holistically, mind, body, and spirit, or the archetypes, father, mother, and child, was used as a basis for all growth and development of ancient African science technology. All right. So the good brother just breaks it down very eloquently. And I think it's something that we should not overlook in these modern times, in terms of just going back to the ancient archetypes, which is really my passion and purpose.
Okay. All right. So, Naeem, since when you came to the UK and your preferences of the UK on the financial level of business-minded people, what did you oversee between the relationship between the UK and America itself?
Well, I will first point out the differences is that the upward mobility in the UK is not the same as it is in the US. We have an American dream out here where a janitor can become a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. That same standard of upward mobility doesn't exist in the dream hierarchy of people in the UK. A lot of people accept a certain standard that this is the way it is because of the way your government is set up, right? So you know, the average person can't dream and say, I'm going to become king one day. But in America, you can dream and say anybody can be president. And so just that system of thinking changes how people go about setting their goals and their ideas. Now, the digital revolution, of course, changed that a little bit when it's expanded people's minds into different possibilities in different places and lands. And so I give kudos to a lot of what's happening in the UK is because, for one, y'all got out of slavery, you know, quicker than we did. So the problems that exist are a little different. You have healed from things that we have not yet healed from. And so when it comes from the masculine and feminine energy, I think when I went out there, people understood the principles of it much faster. Then when I come out here, we're intersected with so many people's mindsets that it's hard to get them to adopt a single idea that stems from their own ancestors. So, but financially, you know, like our system is set up for capitalism. And in capitalism, if you learn the system, you can win 100 million ways. Right? Their system is set up, you all system is set up so that the people that are in power maintain that particular power. Not so that people under them can get to that same level. Like your government doesn't have to have the same level of disclosure as far as the things that they talk about that they do publicly. Right? And so that, I think that mindset that people have to get out in the UK is not thinking locally as well. And they have to start thinking about dabbing into the international and the global economy, because that's the only way that you're actually going to be able to really manifest and make money. You understand me? And so when you think of it like that, you're saying that if I'm not thinking about the recession that's in my neighborhood, I'm thinking about the opportunities that don't exist here. Because as long as I got a phone, the opportunities exist everywhere, right? And that mindset changes the upward mobility you can have in the world, not just in your country. So if the erasure of the mindset that in the UK only this is possible changes to, oh, as long as I'm a citizen of the globe, this is possible. And a lot more people are realizing that, not even just looking at the difference between the US and the UK, because I think it just becomes now just a human construct thing of breaking those barriers and thinking about what's possible today. Yeah, I mean, that young kid that's on the phone that can DM 19 keys and ask them some business solutions are not really worried about what's that guy y'all got the UK version of Trump, what's his name?
Boris.
Boris. Yeah, you're not really worried about what Boris is implementing. Yeah, I mean, him and Trump really remind me of each other. Boris just, is more collective, and that's all. Yeah, I mean, but they definitely remind me of each other. But that young boy that's growing up in that hood, he not thinking that his opportunities are limited because of what Boris is doing. He thinking that his opportunities are limitless what 19 Keys is doing. And so if we look at opportunity from that mind stretch, it really changes what our people believe is possible. So I think that, I know you all told me about a foreign exchange program that, you all were working on. And I think that opportunity to have people from the US come over there and people from the UK come over here expands the mind and make those tangibles of what they're thinking about a reality. But yeah, I would say though I like the marketing that the infrastructure you all have over there versus the marketing infrastructure we have over here, because you all have more real marketing. In America, you can kind of market anything you want to people. They were saying, I know a sister was breaking it down to me that in the UK you can't market like fast food and liquor across the street from a school, right? So there's ordinances that wouldn't allow that. You can't market fantastical claims that are not proven to be true. In America, you can market all the bullshit you want to in the world. You understand me? For real. You can claim it does whatever you want to, as long as it really don't step on the toes of the government. So I felt less bombarded with the business marketing out there. Yeah. But at the same time, I think what it does is it makes step on the dreaming aspect of when you get excited about a product, but the only way you can market it is if you do it in this way to where you have to, you can't really show your excitement. You have to do it in a way to where it's just very real to the market. You give the data points and you allow them to take that in. So I think that whoever creates this, especially out there in the UK, well, not even that, just more so understanding how valuable you are to other places, right? So, like, I think that, and this is something I've never really said out loud, and it kind of goes off subject, but I think that when we look at the availability of like even the dating pool and family creation, I think that we need to, mesh different cultures and collaborate, right? So that our pool of dating is not just the U.S. Because obviously, brothers in the U.S. got issues with sisters out here, and that creates a whole issue. But you want that same politics don't exist between a black man from the U.S. and a woman from the U.K., a woman from the U.K. and a man from the U.S. You're still black people. You understand me? So for me, I don't care how that family is created. It's a black family. That's beautiful to me. One just has a different kind of accent and speak a different kind of English. But that's the same thing with the diaspora around the world. We have to understand that we have a global dating pool to create family structure instead of a local dating pool. Instead of looking at each other like, oh, we got all these issues. Wait a minute. It's black men and women all across the planet Earth. If you got a problem with a black man in America, go get you one from the UK then. Sis, if you got a problem with the sis out here, y'all creating black family that's growing up to be righteous, I don't have a problem with it. You understand me? But that also goes towards how we do business. You understand me? Like we should be doing business and doing import, export, or just, whatever that can be done in the UK can't be done out here, whatever y'all like about us out there, make sure y'all getting it from somebody that's black in America. Make sure we getting it from somebody black in the UK. Just create systems that make sense across the diaspora, because as soon as we connect, we become the majority. We're in the minority because it doesn't matter if it's two people, right? and they're separate, those are two ones. But the moment those two people come together, those are two people. That's a group, right? So that's kind of how we are across the planet Earth. Yes, we have it's more of us than anybody on the planet, but we divide it into ones. And so therefore, that makes us the minority. But the moment we connect together, we become the majority of the planet Earth overnight. And so they keep us divided so they keep us controlled. But the moment we relinquish that division and we say, wait a minute, them 2.5 million people in the UK can be added on top of this 45 million. We just increased our numbers by 2.5 million. Now we have 47.5 million. Now we take that growth and we go connect it over there to our brothers and sisters in Jamaica. Now we increased it by another millions. Okay, now let's go over to South Africa. This is what Marcus Garvey was doing when he had 45 million followers. You understand me? Or 50 million, or however many it was. He connected different people, so he had that majority rule. So it's like, come on now, what are our excuses besides our division?
Rich.
Rich, where you at, man?
Where you at? He keeps on disappearing, he does.
I'm here, bro. I'm listening intently. Everybody knows what the Black Eyes TV remit is, which is the UK, USA, and the rest of the diaspora link up. I definitely agree with the brother that we have to see past our differences as far as where we are geographically and start to understand our collective experiences. You know, I don't think there's enough of that. As somebody who goes on a lot of my American brothers and sisters channels and talks with them, I always find there's always that wall that you hit where suddenly, you know, you don't get what we're going through, we don't get what you're going through. And my biggest advice to people is start to travel, because I think that's one of the major differences and things that we kind of have here and maybe take for granted, but we do a lot of, because we're on a small island. We travel, you understand, we do our thing, but that's the one thing I would definitely say. There's nothing like experiencing a new country, a new place, and speaking to people firsthand. That's why I commend my brothers who get on planes and actually come and see what it's like.
Hey, man, like he's gonna do that every time, man. I loved it. It was a lot of Top God activity, man. To turn a top boy movement into a Top God movement, man. And I actually really like it out there in the UK. Everywhere I turned the corner, there was love, there was energy. The people are, I will say, ready. I was having this conversation with a brother today. I said, you know what? We've been spoiled out here with consciousness. We've been spoiled with so many leaders, so many teachers. We've been really spoiled, and we don't even realize it until you go over to the UK. And I say, well, how many Malcolm X's and Martin Luther Kings and Marcus Garvey and Noble Drew Ali's do the UK have throughout their movements? And it's like, bro, in comparison, little to none as far as on that. So it's like we've been spoiled and still haven't been getting it done. So, but if you take those same leaders, the value of their leadership in another geographical location creates a very effective and productive change. And so in America, when we look at our leadership, we have to, for one, appreciate and have a level of gratitude that so many great men and so many great women actually came out and got ahead of our movement and done so much for us, because other places have to look at that from afar and just appreciate that Black consciousness. So out of our struggle, it's almost as if we went through the worst to show you how to get out of it. And we can go back into that history and teach the rest of the world on what they've been missing, what they lost. Like the average, I had this conversation and some people thought it was a controversial statement, but you all was there when we went out to Parliament and we spoke Holy Day of Atonement on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's birthday. And the Queen Diambia and the other king that was with us from Ghana, she said that I learned to be more Black from Americans, Black Americans. Or I'm learning to be more African from Black Americans, sorry. And I heard that sentiment, Usher, when I went out to Africa as well. And it was explaining basically if slaves were never taken, brought to America, and the rest of the world was just colonized the way that they were, who would have been the people that were deep into the history because they were so lost from any foundation that started to uncover all of our lost archives and knowledge and the Egyptian history and the African history and the Asiatic history, and take that and teach the rest of the world, telling them like, wait a minute, you're not just some South African over here, for one. You are God. So I'm not saying that we taught you how to be more Ethiopian. We didn't teach you how to be more Ghanaian. We didn't teach you how to be more Angolan, but we did teach you how to be more of that black God that you are before those names even entered on the planet Earth. And that's always been our greatest contribution to the rest of the diaspora, is we reminding that you are God on this planet Earth. And so the average African, and I'm saying African, and that's a very broad statement, but I mean it in the general and not saying that that's the entire populace, but the average African is not going deep into the studies of what are their ancient traditions and cultures because they take it for granted to say, well, I'm just an African. So you don't feel disconnected from a history, so you don't go deep research to try to reconnect to it.
Yeah.
You understand me? Don't even realize how much you're disconnected because of colonization until somebody go into your history and be like, don't you know your people did this, they did this, they did this? And you're like, damn, this Black American telling me more about my people than I even knew, because we knew nothing about ourselves, so we find ourselves across the entire continent. We don't just pick one region and say, oh, let me get into that. Except some of our brothers, you know, going to Egyptian culture. But also, I would like to say that on this, because I love the Egyptians. The greatest thing that the Egyptians had was not that they were the first to start a civilization, but they had the most well-organized civilization. And they were able to have organization. And so today, when you look at Black people, it's not the fact that we are not great genius builders, mathematicians, and the greatest adventures that this planet has ever seen. We've invented more things than any other people on this planet. And there's no cell phone, there's no TVs and light bulbs and stoplights and cotton gins and plastics. There's so many different things, but how come we don't study our own people for that same level of intellectual greatness, even though so much has been coming out of us just over the last 400 years? We skip over our own people immediately and we jump back to the Egyptians to study them. So I look at it because we don't really see each other connected as brothers and sisters. Otherwise, you will marvel and revel at the inventions that we cannot do today. You don't know how to create a cell phone. Why we don't study that is impressive. We don't know how to create the laminate for the light bulb. Why we not studying that is impressive. Or even the internet and these microchips that come out of all of this Black intellect. So we have to get back into even reconnecting with each other before we jump over our current ancestors and we go back deep into our past, but not appreciating the people that's connected to us right now in our own culture. And so the beauty of Black Americans and Black people across the planet Earth is that, yes, we're powerful and we're doing great things every single day, but we're just not appreciating it. And people in the future will look back and say, boy, them people was amazing. Like, I'm sure the Egyptians weren't constantly saying, yo, we build pyramids, we cold as hell, y'all. You understand me? We got tuning forks and all kind of magnetic different things going on right now. No, the people in the present a lot of times take themselves for granted. So we can't do that. We can't afford to, because if we just look at the last 100-year history of Black people in America, you have enough to study. You understand me? Because if you take the average person and you transfer them back 200 years, how can you tell the people how to build what your people have done? Mm-hmm. So the average person that participated in the building of the pyramids, they couldn't tell you how to build the pyramids. They were just a participant. You're a participant in society and make you think that you're moving forward. But because you were born in a time where we have advancement of science, you don't know how to create a TV. You don't know that technology. So we have to learn to even look around at what's in our environment and be appreciative and deconstruct these things to even take the knowledge of the current. We're waiting on the future to be built instead of, for one, taking the information now. And this is what we do with this. See, if we stop pitting our ancestors against each other, as as if they have to be battling against each other in our minds. No, it was Marcus Garvey. No, it was Noble. No, it was Elijah. No, it was Martin. No, it was Malcolm. No, it was Farrakhan. No, all of those are representations and frequencies of Black consciousness. They were able to go inside themselves and give to the world. And so when you go in there and you say, wait a minute, let me learn from each one, because this is how we take what our ancestors done and evolve it. Evolution comes from knowledge. So what we do instead, we get indoctrinated by their scholars, their inventors, and their agenda, and we evolve their people because we're involved in that white patriarchal intellect instead of that Black God consciousness. So we have to get back into evolving our ancestors by equipping ourselves with what was started by them and taking it further. I wanted to get that out.
Yeah. So in looking in the perspective, Konsu,
Yeah.
in future tenses, like how we've been having this discussion in facts of trying to create these manhood academies worldwide in forms of opening in New York and opening in certain places. Like we're trying to do Dallas, trying to do Birmingham, trying to do Manchester. And we kind of given a demonstration between the exchange program between the London, West London branch and Amsterdam. Give us a kind of an insight of what you achieved with that exchange program between Amsterdam and London itself.
Well, as 19 Keys just mentioned, you know, we're definitely on radar to make a connection with the US in terms of bringing a whole brigade of Black boys to America and a whole brigade of American young'uns coming to London. I mean, we did, when we began Manhood Academy, we did have a project where we brought a group of young boys to Gambia, Africa, you know, just so that they could, it was a coming home. It was a coming home. It was a, you know, a ritual of reconnection. And with the branch that I manage with my crew, Kahinde, J Change, Bradley, big up Bradley, I see you. And I see you, Dean Okai. Dean Okai is going in on the chat. Yeah, so we took a group of young men to Amsterdam, Holland. We did an exchange program with an organization in Holland called Untold Empowerment, who teach Africa-centered education through performing arts. So they have like drum orchestras. They might do a rendition of Harriet Tubman and Yah Santawa, and that's how they educate their young people through performing arts and Black history. So the thesis of the exchange program was what are the similarities and differences of being a boy of African origin being raised in Europe. So that was what they had to explore. So they had to peer up, twin up. When the boys from Amsterdam came over here, we took them to the British Museum. We took them to Brixton, you know, eat some Caribbean food and see our community. It was a cultural exchange program. So remember, I'm sure you may see it in the US and over here, especially in the summertime, you may see an entourage of say, Chinese students, all the little backpacks, you know, with someone holding a flag and guiding them, or some Spanish students. In America, I'm sure you may see the same thing on your high streets, but you don't see boys or girls of African origin traveling the globe like that. So we thought we'd do something different. So it was a very enchanting experience for the young people and for us. And basically the conclusion of the thesis was, well, we're pretty much the same. The differences between young people in Amsterdam, the Black boys in Amsterdam and the Black boys in London, is the boys in Amsterdam do not necessarily have the trauma that we have in London. They don't necessarily have gun and knife crime violence to the extent we do over here. So what they expressed to us in Amsterdam, the teenage boys, is that they love the trap music and they love the drill music coming from London, but they didn't know it was real. Okay, because in their reality, it's entertainment. So they couldn't fathom when our boys are saying, yeah, it's real in the blocks, man. You know, man's getting hurt in the blocks. When they're expressing that to the Dutch students, they had no concept of that, because obviously there is chronic proportions of violence in all our communities. But in Amsterdam, they're so calm, they're so laid back. They don't have, that's not their reality. So black boys are not all the same around the planet. And I would say the exchange program was definitely an enlightened moment, just to see that we're all the same, but we do have differences. And I think it'll be phenomenal to have an experience of, let's say, the leading African diasporans on the planet, which are the UK and the US, and just an exploration of how our boys interact and what they can exchange. You see, 19, one of the things, and this is just throwing in a bit of debate, right? I have cousins. Most of my family's Guyanese, from Flatbush Avenue, from Brooklyn, from Queens. And one thing I know about my cousins, for example, is that their world is America. My cousins will go to Canada if they want to experience winter, snow, skiing. They will go to Miami if they want to experience warmth and tropical climate, right? In the UK, we hop around Europe, or we have easy access to travel, so we have a more well view of things. But it's often said in America, when we see the narratives, America for us is the intellectual faculty of our people, and everyone looks to the US for what's next. They look for the knowledge, they look for the metaphysics, they look for the higher vibrational information. But what we find is narratives is usually about America. So brothers will talk about traveling to Las Vegas, Miami, New York, Washington. It's all in America though. So yeah, it was a blessing to see you, Red and Blue, and the family come to the UK, you know, and just say, you know, we're here, by the way, and we are conscious and enlightened, and we're like this all around the planet. You can go to Russia and find conscious black people. You can go to Spain. You can go all around Europe and find the same thing. And it was a beautiful observation to see, especially Red. Red was totally enlightened by the experience, I remember, in speaking to him. But it's just beautiful to see that, you know what, you're listening to maybe more than you know around the planet, you know, and it's good that you had a first-hand experience of that when you did come to the UK, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening, mind-opening. I stayed there for almost like a month, so I got to, you know, enrich myself with some ethnography, some participant observation, rather than just go there and feel like a tourist. No, I stayed in just about every part when I went there. You know what I mean? Especially Britain, of course. You know, that's where the people let. And of course, the next tour was to get me down to Birmingham. Yeah, I mean Manchester, and it was dope because I went to the mosque up there and I spoke, and it was almost like the United Nations there. It was brothers from Italy and France or same thing, but yeah, French speaking, and you know, brothers from the UK and people even from Chicago at the same time that I was there, and it was just dope to see people believing in the same thing but coming from different cultures.
Yeah,
You know, and speaking different languages. There was people that I couldn't have a conversation with, but I know what they were being interpreted was the same thing that I listened to and that I believe in. And that's powerful. You can go around the planet and you realize, for one, that, you know, like you just take for granted that when you're in America, this is the world, right? Even people think about America, you don't think about it as being attached to a continent. You think that the continent is America instead of North America, right? Because they created America in such a bubble that some people don't even leave out their neighborhood. And I know that this is this in different places around the planet. There's people that live in LA and they never left their neighborhood. They never went to the beach. You understand me?
Yeah.
They never came downtown at one point in time in their whole life. And so you start to ask yourself, what is real slavery, right? Because slavery is in the mind. When the people don't move beyond their radius, they're slaves. You understand me? And so it's not until we really become masters of our world, we got to actually travel the world.
Right.
We got to actually expand our consciousness in our left and right hemisphere. We got to,
Global
you know,
mind,
I can't wait to
mind.
go to Kenya and meditate right there on the line of the equator so I can have both of my sides of my brain in two different hemispheres at the same time. Like, we got to go and do stuff and stunt like that. That's the real stunt as black guys. Like, travel our planet and show we own it.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put things on the spot, and you know, we're a people, right? And the way we deal with things, we don't just talk. We like to take action, and in forms of taking the action, I'll say on screen, we will put it to you that if you could help us help you in the fact of you becoming one of our ambassadors for the Manhood Academy, and would you accept it?
Absolutely, unconditionally. You know what I'm saying? I'm 100% for that. You have 19 keys as an ambassador for the Manhood Academy. I'll be here to say that on record.
All right, blessed. I'll add to that. I'm 19. I mean, you know, we view you as an archetype of noble masculinity. You know, so it will be a blessing for you when you come back to the UK. Speak to the little younguns, the little 8-year-olds, little 12-year-olds. You know, and just we need to model. We need to show them. They need to see it tangible. They need to see, you know, high vibrational Nubians that are just functioning from all cultures and all parts of the world. So that's why we had Layla Africa show up and speak to the younguns. Who else have we had? We've had you know, a few people we've had Queen Afua come in with Ali the Great, and anyone who's in the country, we just kind of shuffle them to Manhood Academy just to plant some seeds in our young people so that they can model in the future who they will become, you know?
Yeah, and you know, we had Queen Diambi and things like that. But you know, in its overview is that we need us that are doing the work and putting it on the ground to able to bring in our young'uns and showing them, but not just showing them, because if 19 Keys comes over, it's able to do a full massive tour. So that full massive tour will consist of us able to opening up academies across the UK, as well as having London, Birmingham, Manchester, but as much as possible, and having 19 Keys represent us in full entirety.
I can't wait to come over as soon as they open the borders up, man, and we see what happens in this world. It's crazy actually thinking about the idea that you can't even go over there right now. You know, that's a very interesting thought process that we kind of got to digest a little bit. But yeah, as soon as they open the borders up, I'm there. I'm definitely there, you know. So I can't wait to our two knucklehead, you know, our president and y'all prime minister, you know what I mean, get some things going.
Yes. Oh, good.
Rich, are you still there?
Yeah, still here. Happy to be hearing my involvement in what's going on, moving forward. And when I studied all the great revolutionaries, again, once you start to look at their history, you realize they all traveled. And every elder that we've met from America, Smalls, whatever, they got international relationships all over the globe. So, you know, this fallacy of thinking that's because somebody hails from America, you know, that's where they stay as far as our greats go, as far as our revolutionaries go. Nah, they were traveling the world and they were being inspired by people from across the globe and across the diaspora. So, you know, if we think being stagnant or stationary is the way forward, you're missing a trick, because the true experience is traveling and understanding the circular nature of our history. That's why, you know, as Consul was saying, when Red and Blue came, and they're seeing the Moorish connections, the black connections in the architecture, the people, and everything, you know, it's an eye-opener, because we are connected. It was one set of people that have been broken up and spread across a wide area. So It's always good to remember. And again, what Nine Keys was saying about learning from American history, I think that speaks to the diamond analogy, where you put pressure on something, and at the end of it, the result is that precious diamond. You understand? And I think that sometimes is needed for our people, that intense pressure to make you have to go into yourself and produce. So as he's saying, over the last 400 years, over the last 2,000 years of slavery, since the Arabs and the whites, there's been countless inventions, as the brother said, and innovations that we've done that can be studied and seen. Riggsy knows we've done the museum tours where we're showing, 16th century, 10th century stuff that we was doing and mastering, and again exhibiting all over the known world. So yeah, definitely the history's there, ancient and modern. I just think that certain times we need the ancient at this point because our moral system is so out of place. And I always say that black genius and black excellence has to be grown. So sometimes we have to go back and just till the soil. We have to tend to that garden, and that's being done when we start to look at our moral fiber, because from that premise is where the black excellence grows from. So I think that's why it's always important to understand that comedic science, those natures, your environment, the principles of the greater universe around you, because that's what's going to lay the foundation for the black genius to come out of, for it to grow and, sprout into many different forms. So that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, and just to add into that is that we just got to look at our past and some of these elders. Even when we just look at Marcus Garvey, Marcus Garvey made a footprint not just in America, not just in Jamaica, but he made even a footprint in the UK. So when and in every aspect, he opened and tried to create or even created establishments within each community. For if someone could do that in the 1920s, what can a man do now? Because remember, the sticks were stacked up at him at that period of time, but he's able to galvanize. He didn't have the internet. He didn't have technology, and he did and achieved what he achieved at that time. Because even if you come to the UK, the guy had about 5 different houses. He had a newspaper business. He had most of things going for him in the UK after they kicked him out of the United States. So it shows you the energy and the power that this guy has. Why can't we do that today? Because most of us have that opportunity. Before, back then, not everyone could jump on a plane. Now we can. Why don't we push that forward? As I know that even majority of people out there, they don't even have passports. But why haven't you? Why haven't you negotiated that? Why haven't you moved from that? Because the system finds a way of keeping you in one community. And now that we have this, what we call Corona, it's keeping you in your own house. So what are we doing to able to achieve to traveling, to able to achieve to making that family, to able to achieve that community, to able to achieve a nation? If we don't come together and to creating that community, what are we here for? What is our purpose? What, to go partying, to buying clothes, to sleeping with multiple women? Is that our agenda? We have to think carefully of what our real purpose is. If we want progression, it's about time where we have to think of uniting or think of working with the brothers and sisters. So in the overview of everything that we've had, Konsu, what would you like to say to the general public and what you have learned today?
What I have learned is the power of the African diasporan, which we all are here. So we know that the Western way of thinking is fragmented and the Africa-centered way of thinking is holistic. And I would say maybe we need to, it starts with language, right? Maybe we need to reconfigure how we relate to each other. If we coined a term like we are African diasporans, for example, that puts us in a whole pool of America, Europe, all around the world, you know, and that ideal that we all have in the conscious community of reconnecting back to Africa. But for me, I like to just throw out there, I'm going to throw it out into the mental of the masses, that 2021 be the year of the African diaspora uniting globally, because we are in a global market. So we have to have a global mindset in how we do things.
Okay. 19 keys. What would you say to the general public and what you've learned internationally, and what kind of something would you give to the people for them to go home with? Or did
I think it's all about observation and execution. Too many of us are in the questioning phase, and we become like hamsters on the wheel, right? We're expending a lot of energy, but we're not going anywhere. And so our goal as each and every person, once you observe what the solution is, then we all have the responsibility to do something and to play our parts. Me, I personally don't speak or teach upon anything I don't do, because that's the best way of leadership, right? There's two types of manipulations. There's indirect manipulation and there's direct manipulation. Direct manipulation, manipulation itself has a very negative connotation, but it's basically finding a clever way to get people to a particular goal. So when you talk about in leadership, direct manipulation deals with leading by example to get people to a service or a goal, letting them see you do it, and then allowing that influence to get them to where you want them to be. Indirect manipulation more so looks like incentivizing them to get to that service or goal. So when we think about that, for one, today, all leaders have to be direct with their clever ways, I would say that. Because the devil is very indirect with his manipulation and the way he gets our people to achieve his agenda. You understand me? But we have to take a direct approach, and in some cases an indirect approach. But we have to be very strategic on how we move forward and executing to move the needle of our success. So that looks like creating a lot of the things that we see white men do, creating hedge funds and group economics and investing in stocks and building and things of that nature. We have to be equally yoked in the way that we go about getting our financial power, because the finances are always so important, because without it, you can't go to war, right? If we have millions of dollars, we can pay to have the teachers flown across the world and teach the diaspora for a year. That's easy. That doesn't take too much. But you would ask yourself, why hasn't it been funded? Because the right minds haven't had the right money yet. Because obviously there's many black people and many billionaires and millionaires in our community, but they're not doing anything dangerous. You understand me? Because that dangerous execution with your dollar looks like really funding a movement that creates effectiveness and change. So when you really sit back and say, okay, what is my part and position that I'm doing right now? And also, how am I collaborating with someone else? Because remember, unity is not one man flying around the world talking about we need to unite, yet he's by himself. That's not unity. So the accountability comes to say, who am I actually unified with? And that starts with one person that you can unify with, and that becomes 3 to 5 people. It becomes your mastermind group. And that gives you access to information, knowledge, and resources that you normally cannot achieve on your own. So we have to make sure that we are practicing unity within our own homes. We're practicing unity within our own environments before we go out into the world and give them this word, because it's been cheapified because of its overusage. But it hasn't been exemplified in the action and the execution to where we're showing it. So once we get to showing unity instead of talking about it, then we win.
And we win.
So Konsu, in your last few words on this coronavirus and the situation of financial, what would be your last words that you would tell the general public about what to do or your thoughts about it?
Okay, the immune system virus. Okay, well, for me, may you live in interesting times, right? As Confucius said. For me, this is a Control Alt Delete. Okay, Control Alt Delete. It's a restart. It's a reset. Now we can go into the conspiracy theories and the panic and the fear, the collective hive mind of fear. But we can also be optimistic. What is actually coming out? What is tangibly coming out from the community, say in London, from what's going on? What I'm seeing in our community is homeschooling. There's a lot of people are speaking about. People are sending tips on how to homeschool, the best way to manage the day. People are sending tips on curriculum, things you can learn about your children, how to engage, etc. I'm sure from this, people will be very self-aware how dependent we are on the system. We may well see agriculture, take a growth spurt in terms of people wanting to be independent and sustain themselves. So I also believe there's going to be a lot of positives in terms of how we are more self-sufficient in how we manage it ourselves. So as we said earlier, pressure creates diamonds, and from negative, there's always positive. So, I'm optimistic about all of these things that are going to come from this. Also, online platforms. We are about to launch at Manhood Academy Future University. So we're going to have our sessions online since our youth center is not functioning. We're going to have on our screen maybe 30 little young people, all their heads popping up. We're going to have a teacher in the center, and we're going to continue business as usual. So things are going to reconfigure and change in the climate we're in. But as well as the tragedy, we also have to look at the opportunity and optimism.
Yes. So, 19 Keys, in the perspective of the Americans and this corona, what kind of advice would you give them on the epidemic of this situation of the corona and the financial understanding of what happens after the corona?
We living in the times we were supposed to prepare for. So you don't ever want to get caught slipping like this again. Your thought leaders.
Something has happened.
They locked us up. It was building up to the penultimate conclusion.
People, don't worry.
I'm sure we'll find back in.
No conspiracy, but they're trying it. But we'll see if he can get back in. And see what's happening. I don't know if he's the situation. But Rich, are you there?
What you want?
Yeah, so just give us like your perspective and overview of what's going on in forms of understanding America and the UK and the coronavirus and our future tenses.
I can't right now. It's breaking up. I'm trying to sort it out. So if I
we're all in
the
technical situation.
You know what we need to do? You need to get the link and give it to that Dean kid in the chat room and get him on here. Yeah, that would be nice. It's been a long time since he's graced the people with his voice over here on Black Eyes TV.
Yeah, we'll make a show around Dean soon. Don't worry, we'll kidnap him and put him on.
Noble elder.
Wait, make a show around him. That's a bit much.
Hold on. As we were saying, is that while we're seeing if 19 can come back, but as Dean has got this APAC, and he's pushing that committee right through, and he's been blasting us with all the information and details. Dean, it's time for you to come and express yourself on the platform and give the people what you're doing politically. So don't worry, we'll be hitting you up and seeing what we can talk about and discuss. All right. But yes, people, I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. You know, we're waiting on 90 Keys, but if he doesn't come, you know, I would love you lot to ask the questions, put the questions on the platform, and then we can give it back to you or back on the platform. Oh, here he comes. Here is 90 Keys in the house. Let me see if I can get him in. Just waiting. If there is.
Well, Amazon's getting real busy at the moment, so while you're at home hibernating with your children, check out Sacred Man, From Boyhood to Manhood to Divine Masculine. Okay, good home study. I'm just saying.
and I'll put out there is that if this thing dies down, if it ever dies down, when it does, we will be having the opportunity for Angola. Angola is going to be something that will be phenomenal, which would be a 7 days experience in Angola with Sankofa celebration. And this celebration is where we're asking for people to come along as a united front, to showing that how we are united as a people from across the board, because we're going to be having people from Brazil, we're going to be having people from the United States, we're going to be having people from the UK, we're going to have people from France, and we're going to have people from Africa. So we're going to be coming, supporting Queen Diambi on the 16th, where she celebrates the Sankofa Day and celebrates the second crown within Africa, the Queen Nagunda crown. So it's something that we need to unite and come together to show in what the African diaspora can do and what people that can support, so we can able to move this ship into a form of a nation. But yes, 19 is back, and he was gonna say his last words. Shoot away, my brother.
Yes, sir. One moment. You know, out of this thing, we're definitely going to see global changes. You know, Trump just enacted 5G into public law. You're going to see the ID 2020, of course, that's coming around in October, mandated vaccines, police drones, an increase in AI, which is artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things. There's a lot of things we're going to have to confront in the coming days. Yeah. And a lot of people will be tested and challenged to see what you really believe in and what you're really ready to die for. And so I would just say everybody needs to get their spirits together. You understand me? At any point in time, as this dies down, believe me, it's not over. And that's what you really need to understand. The thing is going to get worse before it gets better. And the moment you think it's getting better, that just means it's getting worse. And you really need to understand what that means. Now, in a cash flow, you have to understand that this thing can come back around at any point in time, so it can lock down the entire global economy again. So that means that you want to make sure that you're not caught in the same position that you were during this time, because all 2019, and matter of fact, everybody had since the last 2008 global recession in order to get themselves ready for this one. So everything that you should have been doing, you understand me, over the last 12 years, now you have to look and say that, damn, what's my problem? How come I didn't take heed to anything? Why did I think that things would just work themselves out? And, you know, 12 and 19 are very masterful numbers when you really understand them. And so that creates a high level observation, but we don't just observe to be in the stars with this information. We observe to execute on what we learn in the data that we collect from the reality that we live in. So yes, you have to make sure your finances, your family finances, your emergency plans are together. We have to create more, like we talked about, this diaspora connection between each other, to where we can have infrastructures and plans, to where, let's say if there's a brother stuck somewhere right now, we should have a house or a place that brother can go to. We should make sure that we're creating a stronger leadership foundation, to where there's going to be a lot of people, if they ever create this mandated vaccine, they're not going to want to take this. But I think about it like this: if they're going to let me back into UK, how do they know 19 Keys is safe? You understand me? Okay, possibly you go take the test that says, You understand me? You tested negative for the coronavirus or the COVID-19. Because beyond that, you're putting the rest of the public in danger. Now, I don't say these things to fear people, but I say these things to ready you for thinking about what you even ready to do. You understand me about these things? They try to implement that into your reality. But the best thing you can do right now is take measures, getting yourself financially prepared, getting yourself mentally and spiritually prepared, and creating infrastructures, and also not accepting reality as if it's already done. Because the way that they get our people is they impression on people with the ideas. And once that idea and that vision is in your head and you believe that will be what's next, guess what? You create the very reality that you're producing from inside your psyche. So we have to remember that reality is what's in our head. So we don't accept it, then it doesn't come in the way that we think it will. That's what the gods are. The devil plans, but God is the best of planners. So that God in you has to be activated on a whole nother level. You have to tap into that God consciousness and realize the seriousness of the times that we live in. Do not wait for things to get better. Wait for you to get better. That's the message I have for the people.
Wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you can see, people, you've heard it from the big man himself, 19 Keys. You've heard it from Professor Konsu, and Brother Rich has just been coming off and on, but he's been doing his work. And there's going to be more discussions. But you know what? Besides discussions, we're going to make it a dream into a reality. We're going to put things into fruition. We're not just going to speak it. We're going to do the job that's supposed to be done. Because this is where our elders who have transitioned, we want them to smile because we're going to be carrying their legacy. We don't want them to be turning and thinking that being disappointed on what we've achieved and just keep on repeating the same cycle of karma over and over again. As I always say, put this thing in your thoughts. If you can think 5 generations back and think of what is your great grandfather's first name, and you can't say nothing about what his first name, second name, or even his surname at that time. Now, I say look forward 5 generations into the front, and you're in that same position. Would you like to be forgotten? That's something for you to think about. So don't you think it's time to make that legacy? So, from us brothers out here, we've said our piece, we said our powers, we said what we have to say. And Dean Oki, I'm always watching you because you're always putting something in the chat room. But you know what, brothers and sisters? It's time for us to make that move. Let's unite. Let's work it out together. Let's bring our youth and give them a legacy that is well deserved. Don't get sidetracked by this coronavirus. I understand it has its weaknesses and it has its points of where it can hurt us. But you know what? Our grandparents taught us what to do. Take that knowledge. Because if you understand Sankofa, going to the past and picking that knowledge and advancing it into the future and upgrading it, we will live much more longer. Keep our name in every single person's mouth and we will survive. We've survived till now. This is Black Eyes TV, and it's always saying about spending black, believing in black, move like a black man, and travel the world. Peace, love, and harmony. And we're out.